Good morning, everyone. This is Julie McDonald with Microcom Technologies, and I would like to thank all of you for attending today's with Algo Communication Products. Host is Scott Farrell, and he is their Vice President of Strategic Accounts, and he'll be presenting today. If anyone has any questions, please be sure to submit them in the question box so that Scott will be able to answer them at the end of today's presentation. Scott, thank you so very much for being with Microcom today. We greatly appreciate it. We're so looking forward to it. So please go ahead and take it on over.
Okay, thanks, Julie. Welcome, everyone. And yes, again, it'll be a pleasure to present to you. So what I'm going to do today is take you through a detailed product overview. I'll also review some of the newly introduced products. We have quite a number of products that are being released. And I'll show you some use case studies that we've done as well that I think could be very useful if you're communicating with clients and they want to understand what we've done or what you can do for them in certain environments. So I've got a use case study for the use case for a couple of education use cases and a couple for transportation. So basically, for those of you who are not familiar with Algo, Algo is a leading manufacturer of IP endpoints. We've been in the business of manufacturing in the telephony space for well over 50 years. And the company's evolved to building out SIP compliant devices. You see a good subset at the bottom of this slide, and we'll be talking in more detail about these devices. So North American based company, everything that you see is built in Vancouver, Canada, and distributed globally. So Algo basically go to market with these four pillars, I'll call them. We basically have IP speakers that you'll see. We have IP intercoms. We have IP paging adapters, and there's a new one that we've introduced. We've also got visual notification devices. You'll see that for those of you that I have not communicated with in a while, the LCD display speaker that shows 12 p.m. That's a new device that we've introduced recently, and I'll be getting into more detail about that. But again, speakers, intercoms, paging adapters. Paging adapters are extremely popular, for customers that are migrating over to new hosted platforms, and they have legacy infrastructure, so 70-volt paging systems. These adapters are key to allowing them to bring this asset forward into their new environment. And we've introduced a new adapter that I'll be talking about to address certain paging infrastructure. So you'll see that Algo, it's very, what a lot of people really like about Algo is the simplicity of the product portfolio. Everything is embedded within the endpoints, so we don't have a complicated, server or licensing structure. You literally order the endpoints. They have the Linux operating system. They have a SIP capability for registration. We're certified on over 60 different platforms. They support multicast. So there's a whole bunch of really nice feature sets embedded. They're multifaceted devices, so not only can they be used for paging, they can be used for loud ringing and emergency notifications. So, most important thing is to understand what the customer is trying to address, and then, position the devices that are going to attach to their network via PoE, and then we can leverage their UC infrastructure to drive outcomes. So from a speaker perspective, we build surface mount, we build in ceiling, we build the horn speakers. So we address all kinds of different verticals. I mean, any vertical that has public address, you will find Algo in there. What we've done is, in the past, you would have always home run a drop to each speaker. What we've done is introduce some satellite technology, which is something that we've seen take off like wildfire. And the reason being is now a customer can run a single PoE plus drop and then connect satellite speakers to it. So basically what we allow is with the in-ceiling speaker, the horn speaker, you can run a single PoE plus drop, connect that to the host, as we call it, and then you can drive up to 3 satellites. So that's going to significantly reduce the number of home run drops you need to do. The strategy for connecting the speakers is in a daisy chain fashion, and it's an RJ45 patch cable from the host, and then it's in and out to the satellites. And of course, the satellite speakers, not being a full IP endpoint, are significantly cost reduced. They're less than half the cost of a full IP endpoint. So when you get into these infrastructures like your corridors and your common areas, the in-ceiling strategy with the satellites works very, very well. They're fully monitored by the host, so you know that these speakers are available and in service. And then, of course, with the horn speakers, we do a lot of work in the logistics and manufacturing space. So again, in those scenarios where you have speakers that are going to be clustered to cover open areas, or you have back-to-back scenarios in aisles, it's ideal to be able to run a single PoE plus drop and then be able to connect your satellite speakers. This is a relatively new speaker set. So the 8410 and the 8420. So basically, it's an LCD display, speaker and strobe. It's 15.5-inch LCD, highly customizable. The single-sided would be intended to be put in a common area, classroom, meeting room, break rooms, and it allows you to have a real visual experience with the devices you'll see in the next slide. And then, of course, the dual-sided version is intended to be mounted, perpendicularly off the wall. That bracket can be oriented on the top, and it can be suspended from the ceiling, and it gives you a dual-sided display. So in a corridor, where you did in the past run, in-ceiling speakers, you can dramatically reduce the number of them, because this is going to give you an audio shot and visual capability from 40 to 50 feet on either side of the device. And where it really ties in and resonates well with customers is customers that have that security conscious, part of the deployment, right? So many people want to be able to trigger an event to take place, and they can pick up a phone call, trigger a lockdown or shelter-in-place notification. We're able to, play that audio message and also take control of these screens. And of course, the content that's displayed on these screens is completely customizable, so the customer can upload whatever they'd like to these devices. And then, in what I call sunny day, when it's just normal time, they can have, basically a slideshow. You can upload, content to remind people that there might be parent-teacher interviews or a football game or, flu vaccines, whatever. And again, these are, PoE driven as well. Just take note that they are PoE++. So the single-sided can run on PoE+, but to have optimum full capacity for volume and display brightness, PoE++ is recommended on the single-sided, and on the dual-sided, you definitely need to have PoE++, which would be 90 watts. So we build visual notification. The 8128 has been in our product portfolio for a number of years, and it used to have different lens covers. And of course, about 5 years ago, we introduced the multicolored 8138. Again, very, very popular, where you've got the red, green, blue, amber. And again, you can tie that into those workflows. The 8190, again, a great device for the classroom with the digital clock, strobe lights, integrated call button. Of course, all of our speakers have a microphone, so they can facilitate two-way communications. We also have an ambient noise feature that I'll be discussing a little bit more, which is very, very popular with our product set as well. But when you want to be able to get someone's attention, not only audibly but visually, we've got the devices to do that for you. So as I had mentioned, paging adapters are very, very popular. We sell thousands of paging adapters. And for those of you that are familiar with the portfolio, the 8301 and the 8373 have been part of the offering for quite some time. You'll see that we've got a new device. It's called the Algo 8305 multi-interface paging adapter. So I'll just take you briefly through all of them, and just so you can a refresher. 8301 basically would SIP register PoE device. It would then provide a balanced line output. So you can see on pins 3 and 4, that's going to connect into the audio input on an amplifier. So for those of you that are, migrating a customer, they've got a TOA or a Bogan system that has a TEL input, that dry audio pair would just connect in there. You would call the Algo 8301, it would answer, and you'd be able to page over the devices. You see that they have a dry contact relay. I mean, that's only needed if the amplifier were, for instance, playing music and they wanted to be able to duck out the music, then you would activate the relay and we can do the music ducking. But if you didn't have that, I mean, it would literally just be the single pair connection. So In addition to being able to provide, the integration to the paging system, the 8301 is packed with features, right? And so it has a scheduled, a calendaring application, so you basically can upload any content that you want, audio content, and then you can have that scheduled. As you can see, it has an auxiliary in, auxiliary out. So the auxiliary in would allow you to connect a, for instance, a music source, and then you could use this device to stream that out onto your network and have that play over your speakers. So definitely lots of great features that are embedded in the 8301. So the reason I had the 8305 developed, and what's nice about this device, and if you're getting into a situation where you're doing a large rollout on many sites, and you're not familiar with all of the paging systems that might be in place, because there's so many different models and brands, you'll notice the 8305, it has the line out that the 8301 has. It also has an 8 ohm output on pins 1 and 2. So that means it can drive self-amplified speakers. But the big thing here is that RJ11 port that you see on the left with the little telephone icon above it, that is an FXO port. So what you'll find with a lot of paging systems that are out there, your Bogan Multicom, your Valcoms, your Roland, your telecenters, they provided what we call talk batteries. So they would literally provide a talk battery pair from those systems in many configurations. And a customer would have taken that talk pair and connected it to a loop start line on their key system or their PBX, and then they would seize that line, and then they'd be able to use DTMF to control the zoning and call and page that system. So what we've done is we've introduced that capability in this 8305. So if you have a paging system that has a battery talk pair on it, you would be able to migrate that talk pair over to the 8305 on that RJ11 connection. You'd be able to call the device, we're going to answer, and we're going to basically emulate that FXO line going off hook, or in other words, a 2500 series phone going off hook, and allowing you to use DTMF to control that paging system. So I have a lot of customers now that are doing big rollouts, like some of my retail clients. They just buy this device because they know it's their switchblade. It covers all the different paging scenarios that they might come up against. And then of course the 8373, that's been in the kit bag for a long time as well. So basically what this device does is it eliminates the need for a zone controller. So many systems that are out there, paging systems, will have a zone controller. What we do is dramatically simplify the customer's footprint. And what we do with the 8373 is we maintain the integrity of those physical speaker runs that would have gone out to those 70-volt speakers, right? So you can see that you have 3 channels, channel 1, 2, and 3. And then basically what happens is we take the 70-volt power from that amplifier, we tie it into the amp in on the 8373, and then of course we call the Algo 8301, and then the audio comes out of the line out, and we do that high-powered switching within our 8373, and then we deliver the audio out onto the channel that you want, and of course we can bridge this together. So a lot of people are like, well, why don't you just leave the zone controller in place? And in some cases, you can do that. But what we're building when we deploy a lot of our technology is a lot of these hybrid configurations, right? And when you use the Algo 8373 and those multiple channels, we can then leverage multicast. So you can have multiple 8373s in an environment mixed with 8301s and 8305s and different paging systems. And then we can tie this all together leveraging multicast, because we have 50 multicast zones available. In the picture that I have displayed right now, you're seeing a scenario where I'm showing a single SIP call. It's terminating on the 8305 and basically multicasting the voice out onto the network, which is hitting the other Algo devices. And if you're using RTP capable phones, so your audio codes, your Polycoms, your Yealinks, your Cisco 3PPs, you're going to be able to multicast to those telephone sets as well. And then of course we can slice and dice this any way you'd like, right? You can do multiple SIP registrations. So the Algo 8305, any Algo device can support multiple SIP registrations. So in your UC environments, for instance, if you're using a UC system that allows you to have multiple SIP registrations, the 8305 could be registered 50 times. You're like, well, why would you do that, right? Well, you may want to register each zone as a direct DID. You may want to trigger emergency alerts. So you would do a SIP registration into one of the devices and have that terminate. And when it's answered, it would actually trigger a message and broadcast that out onto the network for a lockdown or a shelter in place. And then it can also change those screens that I showed you earlier. So that's why we support multiple SIP registrations. We also support DTMF activation as well, right? So the Algo 8305 could terminate that call, then play a wave file, for zone 1, press 1, for zone 2, press 2, for zone 3, press 3, for page all, press 4, and so on. Or, you would do a separate SIP registration, and then it would answer it to trigger a lockdown, press 1, for shelter in place, press 2, all clear, press 3, and so on and so forth. So a tremendous amount of flexibility, and allowing customers to build out these hybrid solutions, it really allows them to do a nice phased migration. I've worked with some of our customers. One of the use cases I'll be showing you today is Fort Lauderdale Airport. I've been working with them for 5 years now, right? And they've got, I'm sure there are over 2,500 speakers deployed. We probably have another 1,000 or so to go before they're to a full IP strategy, which is what they want, right? And the reason that people go to a full IP strategy is so that they can fully monitor and manage that infrastructure. They know that it's there and it's ready for action when they need to trigger an event or do a page. You'll see that we build accessories as well. So the volume control, the call buttons, the audio plate. I mean, this will continue to expand. I can tell you that we've got some new accessories that'll be coming out of the in the third quarter. We're going to have a dual capable button. There'll be other devices that are coming. So I'd love to be able to do another presentation later in the year, and we can touch on some of that. But again, these are not IP endpoints. These are single pair connections that would tie into the Algo device. So all of the IP speakers and the adapters have a relay input on them. So we can connect these devices into that relay input, and then we log into the device and we determine what is the action that's going to take place. So for instance, you could have the volume control wired into speaker in the gymnasium. They're writing exams. You turn the speakers down so that they're not being disturbed. But you may have a button like the 1202, deployed somewhere, and that's their emergency button. And they're going to push that to trigger, an emergency announcement. We have the logic and smarts in our devices to say, okay, well, I'm going to override that mute because somebody's just, playing a high priority emergency announcement. So there's some intelligence, built into these devices. And again, you build, the kind of what I call the workflow, based on the action that somebody takes. In addition to the button being able to be pushed and making a broadcast announcement, it could actually make a phone call, and then it could play a wave file to that far end saying, this is the emergency button calling on the second floor, please respond, and so on and so forth. Lots of flexibility there. The one thing I will mention, you don't need to use our accessories, right? So if you are working with one of your clients and they have existing devices in place, they have technology that can provide a contact closure, maybe a security system, or they have a monitoring system that detects, for instance, ammonia. I work with a lot of organizations that use ammonia in their environments, and they have detection systems for ammonia. When the detection system detects ammonia, it closes a relay. That relay can then be tied into an Algo device, which then makes a phone call and says the ammonia detector in this area just went off. Things like that. There's all kinds of things that we can do, with our devices. We build SIP intercoms, right? So we build two that are audio only, two that were audio and video. So got a big EOL on the 8036. So that's been a device that's been in the portfolio for 12 years. It's actually gone end of life. It's going to be replaced by a device called the Algo 8046. So it'll be very similar. In the footprint will be similar. You'll literally be able to pop an 8036 out, pop an 8046 in. The differences will be that it's going to have a much more powerful processor. It's going to have a bigger touch display screen. It'll support OnVIF, so the video can be recorded into an NVR, a network video recorder. So there'll be a lot more features popped in there because it's going to be a much newer device with a much more powerful processor. That's coming out at the end of this year. So just be aware, 8036 is end of life. You cannot order it. We have basically run out of that device, and we're not able to produce it. We just can't get the parts to build that device anymore. 8039, so that's the one that if you do need a SIP option with video right now, the 8039 is capable. You can see that it's a slim form factor. It's designed to mullion mount in the environment. And then of course the 8028 and 8201, the 8201 is a direct PoE connection. The 8028 is PoE to the controller, and then we allow you to run a single pair to the call station up to 1,000 feet away. So that's great for these retrofit situations where you would have had a proprietary digital door intercom that was tied into a phone system, or possibly an analog deployment. You're migrating over to something that you need that SIP connectivity into a hosted system, UCaaS system. You've got to replace that analog technology. This is a great retrofit device. It's the 8028. It's our most popular intercom. So for management, for those of you who are familiar with the portfolio, you've always been able to log into the device and manage it with the web interface. We also built the 8300. That was a device that was subnet specific, that would manage up to 300 devices on a subnet. We've now increased that to 1,000 devices on a subnet. But where we're spending all of our money right now is ADMP. So ADMP is a cloud-based solution set. It's very, very powerful. It's going to allow you to manage up to 10,000 endpoints. You'll be able to manage all of your firmware updates. You'll be able to monitor the devices for online status. We're going to have two versions of the Algo device management platform. Today, it's a version that we sell for $10 a year per device that we're monitoring. But we are going to be launching an Algo device management basic, which will be free, and then we'll have a pro version that we will charge for. The basic will give you, it's basically going to be an Algo device management for deploy, right? So you'll be able to deploy all your endpoints. For instance, those screens that I was showing you earlier, there'll be a screen builder application. It's available to you in ADMP. We're going to provide that for free, so that you'll be able to build your content. But if you want to maybe monitor the relay that you have connected to an external device, and you want to be able to monitor things like that for in-service, then you would need the pro version. But we'll be releasing a formal document about that within the next couple of months, about what is the basic version and what is the paid version. So some of the common use cases that we see, right? So just remember, there is no head end with our product set, okay? Everything is embedded in the endpoints. So I talked about multicast. I talked about SIP. We support the network time protocol, so our devices are always in sync. I talked about the accessories, being able to tie into the relay inputs. The other powerful feature set we have is the RESTful API suite. So that's where you're going to be able to have the ability to push notifications to our devices. And we're actually, I'm working actually with a couple of school boards right now where we're going to allow them, and when they trigger an event within their environment, my device is then going to be able to push. We've always been the receiver of an API. Now we're going to be able to push API. So this is something that we're working on. It's not fully released yet, but this whole product set, with the API, just allows you to have so much flexibility and allow you to do so much customization with the product set. This is another common feature that is very popular, but a lot of people aren't aware of it. So all of our speakers have microphones in them. So any speaker that has a connection to the network. So the satellites, of course, don't have a microphone in them, but the host that they would connect to does, right? And what happens is we can detect noise in the environment. So not only can we do two-way communications with any of our IP endpoints that have a microphone, but we can enable ambient noise detection. So when in an environment, when it's quiet, we're quiet. When it gets loud, we get loud. And a lot of customers really appreciate that, because in the old world, the 70-volt systems, a lot of times they were set for the worst case scenario and left that way. And the paging was way too loud, and it would cause reverb issues and annoy people and so on and so forth. So you literally can customize the experience with the paging system, leveraging the ambient noise feature, and you just enable that in the web interface. Calendaring, so that's another one that's very popular. And it's embedded in the 8301. It's also available in the 8305. So again, you can build out, customized schedules, upload the customized content that you want, and basically, stream that and play it, as required. We also have the ability for you to schedule your streaming of audio. So a lot of, charter schools in between classes, they like to have music playing. And then, as class starts and the music ducks out and so on and so forth. So lots of capability. You can have multiple schedules, multiple zones, and so on. Very, very easy to use. So people really, have adopted the 8301 scheduler. Again, emergency alerts have become so popular. I mean, we have so many adverse weather events and other things that are taking place where they might have a physical threat to their environment. They want to be able to trigger that. I mean, what we can do is allow you to do, as I said, direct SIP call. But here's an example where you could do a single SIP call, have the device answer, and then leverage the keypad, so DTMF, to be able to trigger different things taking place within an environment. This is, again, just that scenario I already kind of spoke of, where we have the relay input. You can push the button, and then you kind of design what is the outcome. Is it going to be a multicast broadcast? Do I play make a call to a target and play a wave file? Do I make a call to another device and set up two-way audio with the speaker, and so on? So lots of flexibility and capability there for you. So new launches, roadmap. So this device, this is the 8450 IP command console. This thing is, something that I designed for the schools. It was a large school district that asked for something like this, and we've actually deployed this we're testing this at Fort Lauderdale Airport as well. It's been very well received, but this will be released in mid-May. It's a touch display with a Goose mic. We're going to also be offering it with a handset connection in the next version. But what this allows you to do is completely customize that user interface and simplify it for somebody to interact with it. So think of a school. This would be out in the admin or in the principal's office. They might have another one, and they'll be able to access their paging. They're going to be able to trigger events to take place here, and so on and so forth. What's really nice about this device, and it comes up so often with customers that are migrating from a premise-based system to a UCaaS hosted solution set, is like, what happens when my WAN goes down? If my WAN goes down and I lose my phone system, I'm going to lose my paging. This is a great strategy where you're going to be able to still maintain the integrity. As long as your LAN infrastructure is up, this device is a multicast device, right? So you're going to be able to trigger your lockdowns and your emergency notifications. So it's a really nice redundancy story for your clients that are migrating away from premise-based to hosted, and they're concerned about what if the WAN goes down and I have an outage. The horn speaker. So I talked about the 8186, the 8196 with the satellite. Those are IP66 rated. So that means that they can get water on them and they can be installed outdoors as long as all the gaskets are installed properly. What we were finding is that people were not installing them properly at times. So we have introduced an 8197. This is coming out in May. It's an IP69 rated speaker. So this is going to allow you to install these in the harshest environments. We do a lot of work in the food processing industry, so they have to power wash, they have to use chemicals. So this is a device that would be ideal for them. Fort Lauderdale Airport, I'm doing a huge deployment with speakers outdoors there. And again, they get hurricanes there, they get very, very terrible storms and so on. So these speakers are built with an IP69 rating. Literally, you could submerge the speaker and it's going to work. Another speaker that we've built, again, Fort Lauderdale is a big client of mine. We built this speaker for them. We introduced it there. We've just installed 54 of them. So these are out at the jetways. Again, IP69 rated. This is the only device we build that requires 120 volts. It needs power because it puts out 140 decibels. This is the 8507 horn array. Again, these are out of the jetway. So think of it, you've got your planes there, you've got their APOs that are running, auxiliary power units. Those run at like 100 decibels. There's people out there working around the aircraft. They want to be able to, get a notification to them. This does it. I just did my walkthrough at Fort Lauderdale about a month ago, and it was quite impressive. I was almost 200 feet away from the speaker, had two planes either side with their APUs running, and we could hear the announcement clearly. So great speaker for outdoor, very large, loud environments. For those of you who just need a digital clock, what we did is on the 8190 that I showed you earlier, which was the speaker in the classroom that had the digital clock on it, we've taken that digital clock and we've basically built a version of it that's surface one side and then the dual side that you see in this picture. So again, because we support the NTP network time protocol, this is a PoE device, you never have to worry about syncing them, and you'll never have to worry about changing batteries. So again, the 8401 has been released, and I believe the 8402 is going to be released imminently. Use cases. So as I said, we've published some. So this is the District School Board of Ontario Northeast. We deployed there, oh boy, I joined Algo 8 years ago. That was my first project with Algo. They have about 3,500 of our endpoints deployed there, and great customer. If you ever want to read these are published. The Fort Lauderdale Airport that I've been referencing, again, another great customer of ours. And then this one, the consortium, Centre Jouer Léger, is a French Canadian school where they have severely handicapped people, visually and audibly challenged, and they've deployed our satellite technology. They've deployed our LCD technology and our strobe light technology. So another interesting use cases. So these are published on our website. Basically, if you go in and take these down, and there's a great read there, and everything that we've done and everything that we've deployed in those environments. And Julie, that's everything I had for today, was to just give people an overview of the product set, some of the new things and use cases, and I can take any questions.
Thank you so much, Scott, for that wonderful presentation. And yes, I have some questions. I've got them all ready to go. The first one, you just mentioned something about it, but if you could tell us more, that would be great. The question is, how does Algo ensure high audio quality in its IP speakers, especially in noisy environments? And you just talked about that. Can you give us some more?
Yeah, so in noisy environments, so we support multiple codecs. We support the wideband codec G722, so you have improved speech intelligibility there. And then basically with the microphone that we have built into the speakers, in a loud environment, we're not setting that speaker for that worst case scenario all the time. So we can basically have the speaker leverage its microphone, detect the audible signal in that environment, and then be able to throttle up to address it. One of the things that we do offer, if you do have some challenging environments, I have a number of solution architects on staff that would be more than happy to work with you and look at those environments and discuss those environments in more detail. But yeah, with the codecs that we offer within our speaker sets, we're able to address these environments. And of course, you saw the 8507. I mean, that's an ideal speaker where you're getting into a very loud, environment. You want to be able to cover it. That device does it.
Thank you so much for that, Scott. Next question here for you.
Mm-hmm.
How does PoE support and simplify deployment for Algo speakers?
Yeah, so PoE is a very powerful solution, right? So everything that's coming to market these days, whether it's a phone, whether it's a speaker, whether it's a number of devices, it could be cameras, everything wants to connect to the network. So everything we build is PoE driven. Even the 8507 that I said needs power. It needs power to drive it when you want to do full audio, but to configure it, you can plug it into a PoE port and you'll be able to log into the device. What that does is it simplifies it for the customer in that they have a single infrastructure that they're managing. In 70-volt systems, they have to run separate cabling strategy. It's basically 18.2 that's strung over and the speakers are running to it. Then they're connected to it. And then when you want to then manage that system in the future, it becomes difficult. With the legacy environment, you've got to physically go and address everything. You've got to go retap it if you want to change the audio settings. If you want to change the zone, you have to go and move it over to that physical zone of 18.2. When you get into PoE-driven technology, IP technology, and the use of the UI, once you've installed the device, you're never going to have to physically go and address it again. You're going to be able to do all of that through the user interface.
Thank you, Scott, for that. Next question here for you. How does Algo handle latency issues in large-scale deployments?
Yeah, so that's basically something that we would work with the network engineers and basically ensure that they've engineered their system with QoS capabilities. We've done extremely large deployments with hundreds of speakers, and as long as the customer has a properly engineered network, we don't experience any issues.
Thank you so much, Scott. Next question. What cybersecurity measures are in place to protect Algo IP speakers from hacking?
Yeah, so we use 802.31x is available, so you'd be able to set up your security thresholds, and if you plug one of our devices into the network, it has to align to those protocols that you would have built into your network. And we basically also have, we're running the Linux OS, which is hardened. We patch it regularly and keep it up to date. So it's a very secure product set. And then typically, customers will isolate the devices within, a VLAN, and they have an onus on themselves as well to ensure that they have security and integrity on their network.
Thank you for that, Scott. Next question here. What kind of failover mechanisms exist if network connectivity is lost?
Yeah, so if you have, as I had mentioned, if network connectivity to the WAN is lost, you're going to be able to then leverage your LAN infrastructure. So the device that I showed you, which was the 8450, for instance, would act independently as a multicast device and be able to broadcast notifications and messaging out to the speakers in that environment. In addition, you could basically, there was an audio plate that I showed in one of the images. It was an accessory, which you can connect a microphone to, for instance, an XLR microphone. And then you can toggle that device allows you to basically connect a music source or an XLR microphone. So another redundancy strategy is you could have that, and if you lose your WAN connectivity and you have LAN integrity, you'd be able to multicast an event out that way. But the other thing that you can do is, with all of the phone technology that's out there today, so your Yealinks and your Polycoms, they all have the ability to initiate paging via multicast. So again, you would be able to build a redundancy strategy around leveraging the phone to be able to do a multicast event in the event that you lost connectivity to your WAN.
Thank you, Scott. Next question. Does Algo offer cloud-managed paging solutions for distributed enterprises?
Yes. Yeah. So the Algo device management platform that I showed you, that's a cloud-based management solution. It can manage up to 10,000 endpoints, and it can be multi-tenanted, right? So you can have, a corporation can have multiple sites. They can leverage the feature sets that are within ADMP to facilitate zero-touch provisioning to simplify the deployment, and then ongoing management. They can basically, group regions and so on and so forth. So they have a lot of flexibility about that. We also offer single sign-on, so you can have multiple authentications for people to be able to access, in different environments and areas of ADMP. So yes, we do have a solution set for that.
Thank you, Scott. Last question here for you. Will AI-powered voice recognition be added to Algo intercoms for smart authentication?
No, I mean, that's up to the user. I mean, that AI is extremely easy to use. I mean, somebody would be able to build that out. I mean, as long as we're going to be the receiving end of a SIP call or a multicast event. So if somebody wants to leverage AI technology and be able to build, their solution set to facilitate that, no problem. As I said, we support SIP, multicast, RESTful API. So we're not going to go build any AI technology. We feel that others will build AI technology that will definitely interact with our devices. That's why we've kept it very simple. So all of my competitors out there that have server-based solutions that are proprietary are going to run into problems. Whereas our devices are open standards. There's no server. There's no complication. So literally, the customers will be able to leverage the API, capabilities that we expose to allow them to interact with an AI infrastructure.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott, for answering all of those questions for us today. And thank you to everyone attending today's webinar. And if you have any further questions, of course, please feel free to contact your sales rep or email us at sales@microcomtech.com. And if you wish to view any of the products mentioned or shown here today, please remember that this webinar presentation has been recorded and will be uploaded to our Microcom YouTube channel. I'll view it again. Scott, thank you so much for taking the time with us today. We greatly appreciate it. And we're looking forward to having another informative webinar with you a little later in the year to find out what's going on next, or, you know, your next releases and all that kind of stuff. Thank
Sounds
you,
good.
everybody. You're welcome.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.